Hello and welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us. This is fourth quarter pressure cooker. Now, how can you hit your targets and lead with resilience? So, welcome to this live session. We've got so much to cover in this session. I'm sure you're already feeling the pressure of December coming upon you all. And research shows that the fourth quarter, more than 70% of sales leaders report increased stress across their teams. So you may be beginning to see some indication of that. And retention risk spikes as burnout rises. And this is Gartner 2024 report. Now, that's why we're talking about the issue today. So you can head off some of those tendencies to burnout, and then the year kind of results start to form. I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Nadim Joshua, Chief Revenue Officer and Growth Officer of Arena Holdings. So together, we're really going to unpack how you can thrive in the fourth quarter and beyond. Now, Nadim, I want to share some of the results from our recent poll. Every month we do a poll on our LinkedIn page, and this is exploring the theme, which is we asked, what's one priority going forward? And the interesting results were 67% said building a stronger start for 2026. And 33% said hitting the year-end revenue goals. And there's quite a lot of commentary around that. And they thought, the people that did comment thought that the balance was about right. It's really about balancing today with tomorrow in mind. And I thought that was a really good phrase. What are you seeing? Do you agree with this? What's your perspective?
Hi, Janice, and thanks for having me. And I think when you look at that, I think it is balanced. I think it is something that we as heads of revenue generating divisions are always looking at, right? You got to work on the here and now and try and work with what you have and then also build to the future. So I think the poll is right and the comments have been spot on with regards to that. The future is always knocking on the door. And if you're not focused on that, you are going to get left behind or find yourself on a roller coaster when the time comes.
Yeah. Well, from your perspective, being on the executive suite, you're going to be under pressure to deliver. Yet, your team is, what is it, 80, 100 strong?
Yeah.
In order to deliver, you do need to put some pressure and really focus people. So how do you balance those two things?
Look, it's always tough, right? The pressure cooker for us, I think anybody in the revenue generating space kind of knows the pressure cooker is happening 24/7 for us. You're only as good as your last sale. And I think we get into those times where anxiety starts creeping in. People start getting anxious, people start getting worried, people are stressed about how they're going to reach and achieve their targets. But I think you as a leader need to find that balance, right? I always look at leadership in the sales space from a safety net perspective. You're there to provide that safety net. You need to be able to coach and mentor during those times. You need to be able to look at the individual and work with the individual and manage the individual, and then also look at how that individual is working within the team, so that when those two things are working quite nicely, the individual is succeeding and the team is working together collaboratively and working together cohesively, the business then starts succeeding, right? So for me, the balance is really coming down to you're going to have a core team ultimately. And I don't think there's a business that I know of that has a perfect team, a team that's high performing 24/7, 365 days of the year. But there's always going to be that core team, and that core team you can trust, you can rely on, and you can work with. And then there will be other members of the team that will need a little bit more hand holding, that's going to need a little bit more coaching, that's going to need a little bit more of your time as a leader to be able to get them through some of these difficult periods that we face now heading towards the end of the year.
I think it's really interesting what you say. You know, we often say about our customers, meet them where they are, and forget to do that within our team. Meet them where they are, give them what they need at the time. And I also thought it was interesting to say that you're going to have that core group of people. And historically, within the same sales team, you've got that kind of 20% that always deliver, that are real stars, that often deliver 80% of the revenue target. In that in itself, because it's that we've always had that balance, we always expect to have that balance, but surely that also is what creates the burnout. Your best people burn out.
No, it does, right? And I think it boils down to how you as a leader are mentoring and coaching and working with your team. If you're just sitting on the sidelines and watching, I think then you're going to have that burnout of that 20%. But if you're paying a lot more attention to the individuals and what they're contributing to the teams and the business that they're working in, you're then able to identify that this specific individual needs a break. And sometimes you need to force them into those spaces, right? And kind of go, I need you to just cool off for 2 days and come back relaxed, refreshed, and let's hit the ground running. But what I believe, and I think is something that I think all heads of sales, we always struggle with, is building the next striker, the next rainmaker, the next 20% individual that's going to be the high performer. And that's where we got to stay resilient, for example, and be deliberate about our actions when developing the next talent for the business. And that's core, I think, and critical to the future of and kind of also ensuring that your 20% don't burn out. You have to have the backup plan all the time.
Yeah. And you know, we've talked about this before, scale, which is based on ONG, and how that's able to assess the individuals, meet them where they are, and find out the real gaps. And these are gaps of the individuals, not across the team. And then you can pull that together, because one size, as you've said, when you're coaching the individual, one size doesn't fit all. But what's great about this data is that it benchmarks the best in your industry all over the world. So you can really see how the individual matches up and understand not the gaps in the team, but the gaps in the individual, and which of the gaps are going to ensure that they are able to perform. The other stat from this data is that 77% of people either in the wrong position in sales. So you've got hunter in what's the other one? I hate these terms.
Farmer.
That's it. Farmer, the relationship builder. You know, like, you have them in the wrong roles, and so they're never going to perform at their best. And as soon as you can identify and put people in the right positions, then that makes a massive difference. It's less stress on your management and leadership, because everyone's working aligned and in sync.
But I think it's also critical, right? I think in the sales space and how things have just been on a roller coaster for the longest time, a lot of businesses, a lot of leaders in that space have been faced with challenges where, number one, you either have to be cutting down on staff, etc., and then you try and utilize what you have available to close any gaps. And sometimes that's where we falter, right? Instead of us taking our time to hire the right individual, we're rushing to replace because we're under pressure to deliver on a target. And I think we need to start changing that mentality, because when you got the individual in the right position and when they're doing what they love and what they are good at, you'll get the best out of them. But when you've put them in and thrown them into the deep end, you are going to struggle. They are going to battle. And that's when it's going to take a lot more energy from you and from other team members to galvanize and work with this individual to build this individual as we go. But critical, I think, is also for us as leaders and understanding that we've got to have the coaching and mentoring sessions with individuals regularly. I don't want to refer to it as KPIs or AKRs and performance management, because I think it does come down to a coaching session or mentoring session where the individual is safe enough to engage and kind of feel that they're in a safe space to be able to share the pains and challenges that they face with, so that you're able to then identify those and then work with them to either improve or identify that, you know what, this individual is in the wrong position. I need to move them into something else that they'll kind of just excel in. And that's something that we got to do on a regular basis.
I think, that's a really great point. We're so used to coaching the deal and not used to coaching the individual. And the success of the deal is based upon the individual and particularly what's happening there. And if there's
Exactly.
any personal stresses or limiting beliefs, it doesn't matter as a manager what you say to that person. It isn't going to hit that teachable moment, that they're not going to change their behavior. So coaching the individual, the personality in front of you, means that often they know what to do, don't they? They know what to do in a deal, but there's some blockage as to the reason why they're not doing it. And it's that the blockage you need to work with.
And that's what happens now, especially when you get to these pressure points and the business is putting pressure, revenue needs to be achieved, your targets need to be exceeded. This is the quarter that you've got to shoot the lights out. All those lovely, fantastic words that we in sales are always hearing. But I always say to a lot of the managers that I work with is, remember that you don't know what that individual has dealt with from the time they left here last night or yesterday to the time that they arrive in the morning. You don't know what's happened in between that. So when they get here, make sure that you are switched on to understand and see what's going on, because once you are able to identify and kind of connect with that individual on a deeper level, you'll be then able to extract the value that you want out of them. But the minute you are switched off, you don't understand what's happened, you don't know why that individual may have rocked up to work 5 minutes late, etc., that individual's mindset is not ready. And Janice, and I think a lot of us in the sales space know, you can actually hear when somebody is on a call with the potential client. You feel the energy, you hear the energy, you can taste it. I think sometimes it becomes so tangible that this individual is nowhere, his mind is not on the sale, his mind is somewhere else. And that's something that we always got to be sensitive to from a leadership perspective.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. And especially as we've got a limited amount of days, I don't know about in South Africa, but certainly in the UK, it used to be, I remember working in sales and we would work right up to the 20th of December. It just feels now we're talking about the 15th, maybe the 12th of December, where literally everyone's switched off. What they're doing, I don't know, because they're still in the office, but they are completely switched off, parties, drinking, whatever it may be. And I think that is moving earlier and earlier into December. And then you get back in January and the first week you're not into it. And it takes a good couple of weeks to get the momentum going again. So it's quite a short month in order to deliver. So I do think one of the strategies is actually going back to basics and looking at the pipeline, what's realistic, because we all know there's a lot of fat in there, isn't there?
Exactly, right? Garbage in, garbage out at the end of the day.
Exactly.
And when teams are under pressure, their pipelines start being made up, right? They start over exaggerating certain pipelines. But I think that's where you need to be paying attention to from a leadership perspective, right? That during this period, you're going to get individuals that are going to try and exaggerate pipelines. But then you're also going to get the individuals that actually their pipelines are as strong as they're indicating. But again, it's a build-up. I think if people, especially from a sales perspective, it's all about the plan, right? If you've got your plan in place, you've built your relationships. You're not just making transactional sales. It is about relationship sales and collaborating with your customers and making sure you're delivering and achieving and kind of helping them deal with their pain points. Then the pipelines are not an issue anymore, because that I've got everything in place. And in December in particular, you want to make sure that you've got enough backup, right? Because 90% of the time, the clients that you're going to get revenue from. But something can happen. A client falls off something goes wrong in their business. They have to say, Nadim, I'm cutting my spend. I can't help you. I'm out. What's the next plan? What's the backup plan? And if you don't have that, that's when the anxiety and the stress levels start kicking in from a sales perspective. So for me, it's always critical. And I think for a lot of sales leaders, make sure that there's enough depth in the pipeline and strong depth in the pipeline, so that when something goes wrong, your account managers, your sales executives, the people on the ground know that they have that to fall back onto.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So we have been talking a lot about when you have as a sales rep that hasn't got their head in the game, and burnout is costing organizations 322 billion globally.
Mhm.
This is a Gallup stat from 2023, and that's kind of quite close to the end of the pandemic. But actually, there's a lot of hangover from that. It's like this
Yeah.
is the new normal of many more people taking sick days or talking about mental health.
Yeah.
For good, there's an impact on business. So how do you keep people their resilience high when the
Yeah.
pressure is on?
Look, I think that's a good question and a difficult question to answer, right? I think there is still a lag of the pandemic, and people are kind of I think to a large extent, as leaders, we got to be sensitive to the fact that people are paying more attention to their self well-being, and we need to show empathy towards that as well. We can't just always expect people to be performing at 200% and not acknowledging that sometimes these individuals do need to take a break because burnout will start kicking in. And your best performers, it happens to the best of us. You can be performing at 200%, and then there will be a time where you are going to feel a bit of burnout. So for me, I think it comes down to the environment that you've created for your teams. And I think a lot of salespeople back in the day would have laughed about when Google launched all these nice fancy pods and breakaway meeting rooms, etc., in their workspaces, because we operated more like a factory. You got to be here, you got to come in at 9 o'clock, you got to be out by 5 o'clock, you got to see 20 clients, etc. And there's no me time within the workspace. And I think that's a lesson. I think for a lot of us in the sales spaces, create those small breakaway opportunities within the work environment, so that people do feel that they can walk away from their desk and take a break for 15 minutes and go sit down on a nice coffee couch and have a breather. And that's critical. It's about that environment that you create. We if I had my way, I would have some ping pong tables. I'd have a basketball hoop. I'll have, you want that 15 minutes just to
To
walk
let off
away,
steam. Yeah,
just walk away
yeah,
and come back. And your brain almost restarts again, and you can get going.
yeah.
Because you must understand, right? You know the saying, salespeople need to have thick skin. Out of 300 leads, maybe 10% of them you're going to actually have any success, and maybe another 1% of that will actually convert. So imagine in a day, how many no's have you heard? No, I'm not interested. Not a lot of negativity. You need to be able to step away from that and go, okay, I need to breathe. Let me rethink how I'm going to approach things now when I get back to my desk. Or, okay, I need to take a break completely for the next hour and start planning what I'm going to do for tomorrow, and how am I going to approach tomorrow, and how am I going to start redoing and rethinking what I've been doing today and bettering and improving on what I've done. So the environment that you create, I think, is really critical for salespeople. They can't always walk away and wait to go home to go have the break. We need to create those spaces within the environment that they're operating in.
I think that's an excellent point. When you were talking, I was just thinking how 20 years ago, when I was in sales, there's almost like one type of salesperson. They were gregarious and extrovert, and that's our view of what a great salesperson is. And this data tells us, it's been collected over 30 years, that actually introverted people are the better salespeople. More of them are in the higher performers consistently. So do you find that in the environment that we're in, you have so many more personalities as a leader that you have to negotiate with? Whereas when you think back to 20 years ago, you didn't have any of that. It was almost like you'd speaking to the same person and you would get the same result.
No, exactly, right. I'm laughing because it's exactly that. I think we're now dealing with so many more characters, so many more individuals and personalities, and you need to be able to navigate that quite well. And I think understanding the individuals and understanding how they think, how they do stuff, how they operate does help to kind of build a more cohesive team. But that's hard work, right? Because in sales, you're right, we come from the era where, you know, you could you spoke in a certain tone, and that was the tone, and everybody understood it. Nobody felt a certain way. Nobody felt like you being too loud and you being too. Everybody kind of knew we in sales and this is what we needed to do. Now you need to be kind of more aware and a lot more sensitive into how you engage with individuals, how do you approach them, what do you say, when do you say it, how do you say it. And it does make our jobs a lot more difficult, but also interesting, right? And I think that's what I like about it. I think a successful team, just in general, is made up of individuals, and each individual brings their own magic to the party, whether it be an introvert, whether they be an extrovert, etc. It's about now how do you bring all of them together and get them working collectively to succeed. Because I enjoy, personally, I enjoy when you're able to sit and engage with individuals and have different opinions, different views, and are able to share and challenge you on those opinions and views, because then you know you've got a dynamic team. People are not just sitting, they are engaged, they're not disengaged or feeling like, no, I can't say something because Nadim speaks with a bold voice and he feels like he's powering down on you, you know. And that's what we're dealing with today. And I think for me, that's the most exciting part, but also the most challenging part for us as leaders as well.
I think it certainly is challenging. The LinkedIn sales report of 2024, and this is consistent with OMG's scale data as well, in that the survey found that 50% of salespeople are actively considering leaving their role within 18 months. And you think, well, actually, there's really old data out there that the tenure is 18 months to 2 years anyway.
Exactly, right? I think the churn in sales is real, and it's always been real, right?
Yeah.
And I think once you kind of understand it and know it, you then got to work with, okay, how do I keep the core team functioning? Because I think all of us in sales or leadership from a sales perspective would like to have the same team for the next 10, 15, 20 years. That's never going to happen, right? You're never going to have that. But it's about how do you bring in the right individuals as well, with the right skills. How are the new individuals that you're bringing into the team fit into the team and fit into the culture? So I think it's critical. Touching on that is making sure that you build the culture that you want going forward. Because when you're then hiring and you bring in new people in, you bring in people in to fit into the culture that you created for the organization. And I think that is critical.
Yeah, love it, love it. So Nadim, how do you think leaders can prepare for 2026?
I think we from a leadership perspective, I think one, you know, the survey that you just spoke about touched on building strong teams. I think that's something that has to be a priority all the time, right? Because once you're building the strong team and once you're paying attention to the individuals, you then achieve the success that you need from a revenue perspective. But I think what we also must remember going into 2026 is, from a technology perspective, technology is there to help and enable and empower, and to help us as leaders not just drive productivity and deliver better efficiencies in the business, but also to help our salespeople on the ground to do their jobs better. And I think that for me is critical, is how do we help our people do their jobs better so that the business then succeeds at the end of the day. Because if you are able to take away the mundane task, if you're able to use technology to remove unnecessary administrative duties that salespeople get stuck with, you then release them to be able to do what you need them to do. A good friend of mine that heads up Standard Bank in the Eastern Cape posted on LinkedIn the other day saying that, you know, we sometimes get so worried about seeing salespeople in the office, but actually that should be more concerning, because that means somebody else is seeing to our clients.
Yeah.
So we actually need to make sure that we can free up our salespeople so that they can engage with our clients, they can keep our clients happy, they can build relationships with our clients, and not just bound with administrative duties in the office all the time.
So is that a challenge for you, ensuring that, enough AI is adopted to do those mundane tasks and free up your salespeople? Is there resistance to that, or are people embracing it?
I think from my perspective personally, I think my team understand that I'm very digital orientated and I love the tech. And for me, I've been talking about that for the longest time. I've been encouraging them about it. I've been sharing things with them so that they can understand that technology is there to enable them, and they should embrace it as a partner, see it as a tool in their toolbox, as they go forward into 2026. So I think AI shouldn't be the scary, hairy thing that comes along and everybody's frightened about it. Is it going to take my job? What am I going to do if it takes my job? I don't think AI is going to replace people that actually are adopting it and using it to improve their productivity, in business just in general.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we're kind of coming towards the end now. Lots of people will post as the live goes out in the next week or so. So I do encourage people to comment even after the live session, connect with myself, and certainly connect with Nadim. And he's happy to get any of your questions directly, but I will also check on this. It'd be interesting to hear how other people, other companies are handling the pressure cooker and what strategies they're using. So, I will kind of make sure that I highlight any comments I get through. So do you have one last word, one last strategy that you would like to offer listeners to help them to remain strong going into 2026?
I think for me, and it's really about being deliberate, right? And stay focused. I think there's a lot of noise that we get distracted by, and sometimes it does kind of take you left instead of staying on the right path. So I think be deliberate. Make sure you're always planning, and make sure you're building relationships. Move away from this transactional type of selling. I think those days are gone, and open yourself up to be collaborative, because I think we're in a economy at the moment now, in a world where everything is about collaboration.
Well, do you know what? I had some points I wanted to make, but I think you made them all, really. I mean, one of the things I was going to say is, like, don't worry about the number. Don't stress about the number. Really focus about the legacy that you're leaving and in the relationships that you're developing. And I think you summed that up beautifully, Nadim. So thank you for taking my points away.
No, perfect. And yeah, I'll be happy to engage, share any thoughts. I love being challenged, so I think that's what we all in sales for. Let's challenge each other. Let's keep ourselves motivated. Let's keep our teams motivated, and let's remove all the anxiety and the stress over the next couple of months from our sales teams.
Yeah, and you've got to enjoy it, haven't you? You've got to enjoy it so that then you do spend time with your families over Christmas, and you feel that it's been a good year. So yeah, make sure you have fun. So I'd just like to inform listeners that the next month's live will be on the 22nd of October, and we're talking about GTM skills crisis and why business acumen is the number one growth risk. I don't know. Do you have any views on this business acumen?
Look, it's something that I think worries me personally, and I think my biggest thing is we always got to be making sure that we are adapting and learning. Right, businesses are changing, models are changing, operating models are changing, and it's being disrupted across the board. Technology is coming in and just kind of removing everything that you knew about business, and breaking the walls and breaking the barriers down. So I think for me, let's continue just to engage and learn and adopt the new technologies and the new models that are coming up when it comes to business.
Yeah, love that. Love that. So thank you so much, Nadim, for your insights. It's been an incredible conversation with you, but I knew that would be the case. And to the audience, thank you so much for joining us. And as I say, please do post your comments, keep engaged and resilient and future ready. So thank you very much. And I'll see you at the next live. Bye,
Thank you.
Nadim. Thank you.
Bye.